Boys, we'll keep this one nice and quick, obviously, because there are only two teams remaining. We have a Stanley Cup Final between the Vegas Golden Knights, who took out the Dallas Stars in 6 games, and, of course, before them, the Florida Panthers, who swept the Carolina Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference Finals. So one of these two franchises is going to win their first ever Stanley Cup. Of course, Florida is back in the Cup Finals for the first time since '96, and then the Vegas Golden Knights are back there for the first time since their inaugural season back in 2018 when they lost to the Washington Capitals. So we'll get into that, and then our Conn Smythe Trophy picks as well for both sides. So let's get into our predictions. And Case, do you want to go first, or should we start with Chad?
Yeah, I'll go first, and I'm going to do something bold here. I'm going to predict that a team is going to win their first Stanley Cup this season, so put your money on that one. And it's been kind of interesting to see these two arise as the two teams that I picked in our pre-playoff predictions were the Boston Bruins and the Dallas Stars in the Stanley Cup Final. Well, these are the teams that beat them. So that's made my decision a lot harder. If one of these teams had beat the team I'd picked in the finals and the other didn't, then I'd go with that team. But I don't really know. It's been kind of a game time decision. I've looked at the team, and both of them are playing fairly similar, where it's their stars that are really shining, and the bottom 6 is just absolutely banging bodies every single night. Playoff hockey, and it is the depth on both sides that is really the story here. And then your stars putting the puck in the net. Matthew Tkachuk has been phenomenal. Verhaeghe, I wish the Leafs never gave him up. Had to throw that shot in there. Carlson's back to year 1 form of the Vegas Golden Knights. Marchessault, he's never really tapered off as much as Carlson, but he's been phenomenal as well. Yep. Stone, Eichel, all these guys are chipping in. I've kind of been a doubter of Florida, as everyone has all year long. And at this point, I kind of want them to win. So I think I'm going to continue to doubt them. I'm going to take Vegas, and I'm going to take them in 7. Here's why. It's the deeper depth. They're the Marianas Trench of depth in the playoffs here. And it's really showing, because it's their second tier of stars that are scoring all the goals. It's not Eichel, it's not Stone, it's Marchessault and Carlson. And their defense depth, phenomenal. The one thing where I'm definitely giving Florida the edge is momentum. This team is the 8th seed facing the number 1 seed in the West, of course. Of course it's going to play out like that, like storybook ending. It's momentum, and goaltending is Florida's really their strengths here. So it's all gonna be about the first 2 games of this series. I think Vegas has to come out flying. They've got to win one or both of those games, or they're doomed to Florida. But yeah, that being said, I'm taking Vegas in 7.
That's a bold pick, betting against Bobrovsky, the best goaltender in the playoffs right now.
Adin Hill's been good, man.
Adin Hill has been very good as well. That's right. And actually, I was just looking at it before we hopped on in terms of goals saved above expected per 60, so per game played. Adin Hill is in 4th, and Bobrovsky is in 2nd. Shesterkin is in 3rd, and Jack Campbell is in 1st place with the most goals saved above expected per 60. So that's a bit of an interesting stat there. Obviously, it's a counting stat. It's a cumulative stat. So Bobrovsky is at the top by a wide margin because he's played the most games, but he has been phenomenal right from when he went in I want to say game 5 against Boston, game 4 maybe against them. He's just been incredible. So it's hard to bet against him. That being said, it's hard to bet against the other guys as well on the other side, because Adin Hill, like you guys have mentioned, has been a rock. They've been getting incredible depth scoring up and down their lineup. Jack Eichel has emerged into a true superstar by the way, in his first ever playoffs, going to the Cup Final. What a joke. Like, that's just like the storylines in this series is kind of crazy, and that's a big one there for sure. And then the defense on Vegas, like you mentioned, Case, are just much better than Florida's defense, I think. So it's going to be a close series. So can we at least, before I do make my official pick, can we at least say this? Let's hope we get a close series. Let's hope we get a 7-game series. Because
absolutely,
in the conference finals, we almost had double sweeps. Sweeps. Man, I mean, I know it ended in 6 in Dallas, but
it's a shame. Well, for one, it's a shame Dallas lost because I put the bet on them back in early December. That would have been sweet to hit. But it's a shame that Dallas and Miami Heat, their games were on the same night every night and not staggered, because if the Miami Heat completed that comeback the night before Dallas and Vegas went to Game 6, who knows, would they have been like, oh, anything's possible, What did
in case if the Celtics did it.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm all over the place here.
Celtics over the Heat, yes.
Yeah.
They needed to feed off each other is what I was getting at, and instead they're playing at the same 100%. Time the whole time. Anyways. Sorry, Chad, I am going to cut you off one more thing, because I had this in my notes and I had to mention it, and we're talking about depth of the Vegas Golden Knights. I have to talk about Barbashev, who has been phenomenal. He had 46 points in 82 games in the regular season, while he's gotten 6 goals, 9 assists in 17 games. That's 15 points in 17 games in the playoffs. And he's 15th in hits as well. So he's an absolute bowling ball out there. But yeah, continue.
He very much is. And I think he's up after this year. And if that's the case, he's going to get paid in free agency. If that's the case, I could be wrong. I think this is his last year, though. Harper, do you know? I hate to put you on the spot, but do you know if this is the last year of his deal?
I believe so. I believe it is.
Well, we can look into that, and if I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comments. But yeah, he will get paid on his next deal because he's putting in a performance in these playoffs, that's for sure. But here's my pick. I'm going to go with these guys, the Vegas Golden Knights, in 7 games. And Harper, I'm really hoping that you pick Florida, because Casey and I are both going Vegas, and I've bet against Florida every single series, and I need someone to mush them. So please, Harper, can you pick Florida to win this series? Please.
Pick them in 4 as well.
So quickly, yes, this is the final year of Barbashev's deal.
Thank you.
So we were right on that. And you're going to get your wish. I am going to go with the Florida Panthers. I
Nice.
will. So I've doubted this team every step of the way. In my bracket, of course, I had the Boston Bruins in the Cup Finals against the Edmonton Oilers. I had Edmonton winning the finals. So in retrospect, I should go with Vegas because they were the team that took out Edmonton in round 2, a pretty deep Oilers roster. But I'm going to go with Florida, man. I've doubted them enough. I love the way Matthew Tkachuk is playing for them. I think he is the heartbeat of that team, as I said in the Let Us Explain episode that I did. 3 out of 4 game winners in that sweep over Carolina in the Eastern Conference Finals. Bobrovsky has been unbelievable. The only edge that I would give to the Vegas Golden Knights is the depth on the blue line with Pietrangelo and Theodore, McNabb, Whitecloud, the list goes on. And don't get me wrong, I mean, Florida's blue line is just the Ekblad and Montour and Forsling and those guys have had to be that much better. But that's really where Vegas is stronger, I think, is the depth on the blue line. But look, I mean, Florida's got lots of depth from top to bottom in that forward group. And I think that if there is, between Hill and Bobrovsky, I'm going with Bobrovsky to shut the door, and I could see where there are those nights where Vegas is just out shooting them like crazy, and Bobrovsky is able to shut things down and keep the Panthers in it. So I'm going to go with Florida in 7 games. I'm not doubting them any longer. I think Matthew Tkachuk is, and you know, if I'm going with Florida to win it, and Matthew Tkachuk for the Conn Smythe Trophy, and I think that it's got to get done in 7 games if the Panthers are going to do it.
I think when you look at goaltending, though, like if 3 months ago I told you that Bobrovsky and Adin Hill would be facing off in the Stanley Cup Finals, you'd be shocked. So, I'm not saying that anyone is really a favorite in my mind, except the way Bobrovsky has been playing so far in these playoffs makes him the favorite. And, you know, it's the only thing when you look at the advantage going into this last round, the Stanley Cup Final here, is that Florida has had these days off to recover, which is well needed because they have bumped and bruised their way through it. Whereas Vegas, it just seems like there hasn't been a ton of adversity going into this final round for them. They seem to be on cruise control the whole playoffs. I don't know. It was kind of close with Edmonton, I'd say, but there hasn't been much adversity. And going into the Stanley Cup Finals like that, that's a scary way to be.
Well, they lost their starting goalie, right? So that was one thing. Like Adin
but they
Hill,
had 5 starting goalies.
They
so
did. Like they do have the depth there. But it was, you know, that was something going into the playoffs. Like that was a concern, goaltending, and then they weren't really sure who was going to start. And then now all of a sudden, Adin Hill's the guy, and he's been good. So, I mean, that's a bit of adversity right there in and of itself.